My background with the Silent Fighter probably started 12 years ago now. My first exposure was down in Washington at Kelly's house, and I felt like a 2-year-old with a new toy. Just so exciting, but didn't know what to do with it, and then I ended up buying one myself, brought it back to Calgary, still have it. It lasts forever. It always stands up for you. It's always there for you. That's the great thing about the Silent Fighter. So if you don't have a training partner, they're always there for you. It teaches you flow and function. Once you strike, you can go into other places, and it teaches you how to move around your opponent as opposed to trying to move your opponent, because you can't move that thing. So really great for that.
I've been using the Silent Fighter as long as I kind of knew that it came about. Living away from Mr. Worden, it was kind of, I found it very hard in the beginning to kind of, I was following the DVDs, that type of thing, but it was just kind of hard to get together with people and always have someone to train with. So when I did hear about the Silent Fighter, I thought, what a great idea. I bought one and kind of put it in my basement and in my garage right away, and I've been training with it for, a good 8 years, I suppose, at least. The thing I like the most about, not only is it there when you need it or there when you have the time to do something, but although it's just I guess a dummy on the wall, it's much more than that. I kind of found that it really helped to be almost like a center cog in the wheel for if I wanted to do some stick training, or if I wanted to do some knife training, or unarmed, or locks, or whatever it was. I found the Silent Fighter to be so functional, almost like I said, that center cog, kind of bringing all those other pieces together. I found I could really work on a lot of different aspects of my game. The great thing about it is, even if you don't know what to do or anything like that, I mean, there is a Silent Fighter DVD that's very self-explanatory, just to give you at least kind of an intro set. And then, of course, I'm sure, like we're all doing today, just kind of branching off from there, and with whatever tools, empty hand, but you kind of have a base to start from that's right there for you.
I've trained on the Silent Fighter for around 10 years. I think it's Dr. Worden's Silent Fighter is a unique tool for independent training. When you don't have a training partner, I think it's an excellent instrument to execute full power strikes. It's a stationary object. It doesn't have bendable arms, so it requires you to take the first element of self-defense, and that requires you to move your feet around your opponent. Introducing new students to a Silent Fighter, those new students don't have to hit on each other. You're allowed to hit harder on this particular instrument. You can use the tool to establish sets that are already pre-established by Dr. Worden. They build curriculum, they build dynamic movement and striking patterns. We also have the ability to improvise on our own using those sets and combining how they work and things on our own, and we put them to use with that person. We all can also introduce weaponry into the Silent Fighter, because you can hit the Silent Fighter as hard as you want to and it doesn't complain. We introduce training knives into the tool. We can establish those pre-arranged or predetermined sagitas or stroking methods into that tool and practice that on the limbs without determining or banging or clanging or hurting anyone, as well as using it with a real training partner. The Silent Fighter for me has been a great tool, training mostly out of my own home and teaching out of that days between classes. I'm able to go down and clang on my buddy down there and have an interesting workout and experiment and have personal expression on my own.
I've had a Silent Fighter in my dojo for about 6 years now. Piece of equipment that's outlasted any other piece of equipment that I've ever owned as far as a training tool is concerned. The real valuable part about the Silent Fighter is the mounting system makes it quite portable with the new version, so you can actually put it on a rack, put it outside, put it inside, put them back to back, use multiple Silent Fighters. The real great value is its durability, I would say. The money that you're paying for this particular piece of equipment, it's well worth it in any dojo. I have beat the hell out of it with training blades. We've used the stick work on the Silent Fighter itself. An empty hand, you can certainly vamp up and ramp up your intensity with that training tool, because there isn't a training partner that can take that kind of abuse, that level of abuse. If you get really crazy, you can take the tubes off, take all the padding off, and start hitting steel, because there's steel tubes underneath that. So again, with the training blade, you can literally visualize and work it almost like a real opponent.
To get a feel of working with a slightly moving, flexible object that gives you contact feeling, gives you the feeling of limbs, gives you something you can actually equate almost with working on a live person, superb. I think that for people that are not too familiar with striking arts, it's a good way to develop the proficiency, and for people who are familiar, you can develop sticking ability and not just striking, which is even more important in close contact. So I think it's a great tool. You can't do this with a live person, full stop. I mean, you can put them in body armor, and in body armor you can unleash force, but then you're dependent upon having a partner. The investment for body armor is very expensive. So this gives you a way of training with some contact that's not too expensive, but you sure as hell can't do this without body armor. You're going to mess people up.
I'm Kelly Worden. I designed the Silent Fighter years and years ago, probably almost 20 years ago, as a training partner and a training aid for myself. First started with just a log in the ground and something to hit and to move around, similar to the bagua log or the bagua post or the mukjang. One of the things I found difficult with the mukjang, because of my line of work is custom painting, I have to protect my hands. So protecting my hands also meant not pounding on wood. Really liked the rattle and the movement of a mukjang, but with the padded dummy, I found that I could hit it harder. I built the arms so that they were actually shoulder width apart on a full-size American guy. Movable legs, steel legs, so I could really kick it, really stomp it with work boots on or clothing, that type of thing. My main focus was create as much realism as I possibly could, not only in simulation of attack patterns and movements, so I could do stick, I could do knife, I could do empty hand, I could do my boxing, I could do my karate, I could do my kung tao or my silat, Filipino JKD more or less, but build it so that it was totally adaptable and then enhance it with the applications once attachment is made, and find a training partner that actually showed up on time. Even when there wasn't classes or when I had a spare 10 minutes to myself, I could just take a minute, go out and do some training and get the results immediately from that. And that's kind of the idea of the Silent Fighter. It adapts to anybody, mainly for self-defense or for even beginning students. It allows them to interact with their own energy and not the energy of their uki or their training partner or their assistant. And it's very beneficial in that regard. So I really highly recommend the Silent Fighter for anybody that's just looking for a training partner. It'll show up and it'll do almost anything you want it to do except for talk back, like a lot of training partners will do. Hey.